Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. Today, we're diving into something that's grammatically tricky and deeply human.
Yeah.
Expressing wishes and regrets in English.
It's fascinating how these seemingly simple words like wish and if only can tap into such a universal well of feelings, you know?
You're absolutely right. And for you listening, maybe you're learning English, maybe you're brushing up on some finer points, or maybe you're just curious about how language reflects those things we long for, those moments we wish we could rewind.
And what's interesting is that English has very specific ways of conveying these feelings. It's not just about vocabulary, but how we structure those thoughts.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Okay.
We've got two main players today, wish and if only. They work in similar ways grammatically.
Right.
But there's a subtle difference in the intensity they convey, which I'm sure our expert will help us tease out.
Yeah, it's those subtle shades of meaning that can make all the difference in sounding truly natural and fluent.
First up, let's talk about expressing wishes.
Okay.
Think of those things you yearn for right now in the present. Things you want but don't have.
The classic structure here is wish plus a past tense verb.
Okay.
Now, that might seem counterintuitive at first. Why use the past tense for something we want in the present?
Yeah, that always tripped me up when I was learning. It's like, shouldn't it be, I wish I have $1 million, not I wish I had $1 million.
Exactly. But there's a beautiful kind of logic to it.
Okay.
It's almost like saying, I wish things were different right now. That past tense highlights the contrast between what is and what we wish could be. It emphasizes the fact that the wish is currently unfulfilled.
So it's like acknowledging that the thing we're wishing for isn't true at this moment. That makes a lot of sense.
Precisely. And you see this in countless examples. Someone might say, I wish I had a pet dog, which implies they don't currently have a furry companion, but long for one.
Or I wish I could play the guitar like a rock star. Or I wish I were fluent in 5 languages. You know, those classic if only moments.
Yes. And it's not just about material things or skills. We might say, I wish I were more patient, or I wish I had more time for my hobbies. It speaks to those desires for personal qualities or circumstances we don't currently possess.
So it really covers the whole spectrum of wanting things to be different right now.
Absolutely. And the key takeaway here is that past tense verb, it's the grammatical signpost that signals a wish for the present.
Got it. Past tense equals present wish. Okay, I'm starting to feel more confident with this already.
That's great to hear. Now, shall we move on to regrets?
Let's do it. Those if only I could turn back time moments.
Exactly. These are all about the past, about actions we took or didn't take that we now wish we could change.
Okay.
And the structure here is wish plus had plus the past participle of the verb.
So instead of just a simple past tense, we're adding had in there to really emphasize that this is about something in the past we can't change.
Precisely. It's about those actions or inactions we now look back on with a sense of longing or even remorse. For instance, a common one is, I wish I had studied harder for my exams.
Oh, tell me about it. I think we've all felt that one at some point.
Or, I wish I had spent more time with my grandparents when they were alive. These statements highlight the contrast between what was and what we now wish had been.
And those can be really powerful, can't they? They tap into such universal human emotions.
Absolutely. It's that bittersweet sense of longing for a different past. And English gives us a specific structure to articulate it.
Okay, so we've got wish plus past tense for present wishes, and wish plus had plus past participle for regrets.
Got it. Now, there's another way to express these sentiments.
Okay.
One that often carries even more emotional weight. If only.
Ooh, if only. That does feel like it dials up the drama a bit, like when you dramatically sing, if only I could fly.
Exactly. Grammatically, it functions the same way as wish in both those structures we just discussed, but it often carries a greater sense of longing or regret.
So instead of simply saying, I wish I had a dog, you might exclaim, if only I had a dog, to really emphasize that yearning for a furry friend.
Precisely. It's like saying, I don't just wish for this. I desperately long for it.
I can see how using if only too casually could make you sound a bit over the top.
Yes. It's all about choosing the right expression to match the intensity of your feeling. Now, how do you think a native speaker might decide between using wish or if only? What nuances do you think they're considering?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with how strong the feeling is.
Right.
Like, I wish I had $1 million is kind of a daydream. But if only I had $1 million, sounds like I'm really struggling financially.
Yeah.
And that wish feels way more urgent.
That's a fantastic observation. It's about the level of emotional intensity you want to convey.
Okay.
Wish is more neutral, while if only is more emphatic, often tinged with sadness or even a sense of helplessness.
That makes sense. So if only is reserved for those really big wishes or regrets that feel especially poignant?
Exactly. Now, I know we've been diving deep into the grammar, but it's important to remember that language isn't just about rules. It's about how we use those rules to express ourselves authentically.
You're so right. It's like, what's the point of knowing all this grammar if we can't actually use it in real-life conversations?
Absolutely. So let's shift gears and think about those practical, everyday situations where you might use wish and if only. Can you think of any examples?
Ooh, definitely. Imagine you're chatting with a friend you haven't seen in ages.
Okay.
You might say, I wish we could hang out more often.
Perfect example. It expresses that longing for more connection. Or perhaps, I regret not staying in touch more over the years.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. A bit of guilt mixed in with that wish for a different past. And it's not just personal stuff. Think about work or school. I can totally see myself saying, I wish this project were finished already, or if only I'd started studying for this exam sooner.
Absolutely. Those are very relatable examples. Wish and if only pop up in all sorts of everyday scenarios. You might hear someone say, I wish the weather were nicer today, or if only I hadn't eaten that last slice of cake.
So true. They're like little expressions of our everyday hopes and disappointments.
Exactly. And the beauty is that by listening to how others use these phrases naturally, you can start to internalize those subtle nuances and use them more confidently yourself.
Speaking of hearing from others, I heard we have some amazing stories from our listeners about their own wishes and regrets.
Oh, I always love hearing how these grammatical structures connect to real-life experiences. Let's dive into those.
Okay, our first story comes from Maria in Brazil. She writes, I wish I could speak English fluently. I regret not starting to learn earlier when I was in school. I didn't pay much attention in English class back then, but now I'm working hard to improve, and I wish I could practice more with native speakers. Thank you for helping me on my English journey.
What strikes me about Maria's story is her determination. She's not letting regret hold her back. She's using it as fuel to keep learning and improving.
I agree. It's inspiring to see how she's taking ownership of her language learning journey and actively seeking out opportunities to practice.
And it highlights a key point. It's never too late to start learning.
Right.
Maria is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. Okay, our next story comes from Ahmed in Egypt. He writes, I wish I had more time to spend with my family. I work long hours, and I regret not finding a better balance between my work life and personal life. I'm trying to make more time for my family now, and I wish I could take them on a vacation soon.
Ahmed's story resonates with so many people.
Yeah.
That struggle to find balance between work and family is something we can all relate to.
Right.
It's a good reminder to prioritize what truly matters.
Yes, and I love that he's taking steps to shift his priorities and create more quality time with his loved ones.
Absolutely. And that wish for a family vacation, it speaks to the importance of shared experiences and creating lasting memories.
Okay, next up, we have a story from Hannah in South Korea. She writes, I wish I could study abroad. I regret not applying for scholarships earlier. Now I'm looking for opportunities to study in another country, and I wish I could find a scholarship to help with the costs.
Hannah's story is all about chasing those big dreams, even if they seem a bit out of reach at first.
Right.
She's not letting regret paralyze her. She's using it as motivation to explore different avenues and overcome those obstacles.
It's so inspiring. She's clearly determined to make her dream a reality.
And her wish for a scholarship. It's a reminder that financial barriers can often be a major hurdle on the path to achieving our goals.
Okay, and our final story comes from Lucas in Spain. He writes, I wish I had learned to play a musical instrument when I was younger. I regret not taking music lessons seriously. Now I'm learning to play the guitar, and I wish I could become a really good musician someday.
Lucas's story is such a great reminder that it's never too late to pursue a passion. He's not letting regret hold him back. He's embracing the challenge of learning a new skill, even though he started a bit later in life.
It's a testament to the power of lifelong learning.
And that wish to become a skilled musician.
Yeah.
It speaks to that human desire for mastery and self-expression through art.
I love that. It's like he's turning his regret into a creative outlet.
Exactly. And that brings us to an interesting point.
Okay.
While wishes and regrets can sometimes feel heavy or even negative, they can also be catalysts for positive change.
Oh, I like that. It's like instead of getting bogged down by what we didn't do, we can use those feelings to motivate us to take action and create a better future.
Precisely. It's about reframing those what ifs and if onlys into actionable steps towards a more fulfilling life.
Okay, so how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
How do we turn those wishes and regrets into something positive and productive?
Well, the source material we're using today offers some fantastic tips for just that.
I'm all ears. Give me those actionable tips. I feel like we've all got some wish or if only baggage we could put to better use.
Absolutely. The first tip is surprisingly simple,
Okay.
but really powerful. Write down your wishes and regrets.
Just get it all out on paper.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be fancy. A journal, a list, even scribbling on a napkin.
Right.
The act of putting those feelings into words helps you process them and see them more clearly.
It's like taking those swirling thoughts and giving them a concrete form. I can see how that would be helpful.
Once you've identified those key wishes and regrets,
Okay.
tip number 2 is to turn them into specific goals.
So instead of just vaguely wishing I could travel more, actually decide where I want to go,
Right.
how much it might cost,
Yeah,
and start saving towards it.
exactly. Or if you regret not pursuing a certain career path, take some concrete steps to explore that field now. Maybe take a course, reach out to someone in that industry,
Right.
or even just do some research online.
It's about turning those if-onlys into I'm going to statements.
I love that. Tip number 3 can be a bit tougher, but it's essential for growth.
Okay.
Learn from your regrets.
Instead of just dwelling on them and feeling bad.
Right. Try to analyze those regrets. Ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Or what did I learn from that experience?
Yeah.
The goal is to gain valuable insights that you can apply to future decisions.
So even though we can't change the past, those regrets can still teach us something and help us make better choices moving forward.
Precisely. Now, tip number 4 is especially helpful when those big wishes and regrets feel overwhelming.
Okay.
Take small steps.
Don't try to change everything overnight.
Exactly. Break down those goals into smaller, more manageable chunks. If you wish you were in better shape, don't try to run a marathon tomorrow.
Right.
Start with a 15-minute walk today.
Or if you regret not learning a new language, start with just 10 minutes of practice a day using a language app. Those little actions can add up over time.
Absolutely. And finally, tip number 5, stay positive and be patient.
I feel like that's good advice for pretty much anything in life.
You're absolutely right. But it's especially crucial when dealing with those deeply ingrained wishes and regrets. Progress takes time. So be kind to yourself, celebrate those small victories, and don't be afraid to ask for support when you need it.
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yes.
And sometimes those first few steps can be the hardest.
Very true. So as you can see, while wishes and regrets might seem like negative emotions, they can actually be incredibly powerful tools for personal growth.
By acknowledging them, learning from them, and taking action, we can use those feelings to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Right.
And even though we might express them differently across cultures, it's clear that wishes and regrets are a fundamental part of the human experience.
They remind us that we're all striving for something.
Yeah.
We all have hopes and dreams, and we all make mistakes along the way.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of wish and if only.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Right from the nitty-gritty grammar to some really inspiring stories from our listeners.
Absolutely.
I hope you've all enjoyed this exploration of wish and if only as much as I have. I know I've learned a lot.
And remember, language learning is a journey, not a destination. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and never be afraid to express yourselves authentically.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of you listening, keep dreaming, keep learning, and keep speaking smart. Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast.